Good morning, YouTube. Back at it again, another episode of The World is Burning. This is a UK specific video today. We're talking about shared ownership. I think it's one of these new schemes that's just kind of messing with people, not in a good way. First of all, shout out to the subscribers. Love you all, people. We're getting into shared ownership. For the people in America, this is kind of like our HOA. It's causing a bit of chaos. We'll get into this video and then we'll break down what it is.
This is Josie Dom's dream home in Colchester, complete with cat outside. She's a single mother and bought it, or part of it, through the government's shared ownership scheme last year.
Government schemes, people, always be wary of them and always read before you get into them, because these people are waking up in a nightmare right now.
But as a part owner, she still pays service charges to the leaseholder for things like maintenance and repairs to communal services. She was unprepared for just how much, though.
It's a 138% increase, which is just madness.
138%.
Charges included some for non-existent services like CCTV and a communal boiler. Josie hasn't paid the bill and is now in arrears.
The idea of shared ownership is to help people like myself and others that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford their own home, and then suddenly, again, we can't afford it, which makes a mockery of being shared ownership, doesn't it? And having social housing.
The difficulty is that shared owners are still tenants, and across the country they face charges out of their control. That's an issue across the whole leasehold system, but it can put more financial strain on shared owners who own less than other buyers. We've spoken to dozens of people in the same situation. They saw shared ownership as an opportunity, but then those service charges increased, other charges increased massively, and that opportunity becomes a trap. Data shared exclusively with Sky News shows that the number of people seeking legal advice about the reasonableness of service charges has nearly doubled since 2021. That's across all types of leasehold. But the nature of the affordable homes being built has changed. Fewer council homes for social rent have been built recently. Instead, under the Conservatives, shared ownership, here in Orange, has taken up a much larger proportion of the affordable homes being built.
Given that shared ownership is an affordable product, we need to make sure that service charges are affordable, and people, if they find that the product is not affordable, that they can sell it and find something that is more affordable. I think this is very important.
Okay, so that's a key what she just said there. Find people can sell it. We all know if you're in a bad deal, selling it on to someone else, one, it's kind of unethical because you're just getting them in a bad deal. And two, you're in this situation where now you have to figure out what to do with this nonsense product that you're kind of in with. Let's look at shared ownership. So this was an idea to get more people on the housing ladder. So what you do is you buy a smaller share, between 10 and 75% of the full homes market, okay? And the rest of the share, you're still paying rent to a landlord, okay? So now you have two bills going on. So you have a mortgage for this part that you own, you're paying a rent to the landlord, but then you also pay ground rent and service charges, your HOA fees. And this is where the chaos is really coming in. Because this, you can slowly buy the house, makes sense. But then they come in with these scams and they start charging you. So what have we got going on? This one poor girl, heart goes out to her. My one bed flat service charge is now $16,000 a year. If you're in America and you're getting hit when you're waking up and you're getting hit with these high HOA fees, this is exactly the same thing. Let's go down here. They bought a flat in King's Cross, North London. That was her first mistake. Under this scheme, okay, the bill went up. It rose by 274%. From 4,200, which is already ridiculous. Imagine paying that on top of your mortgage and this other rent you have to do, to now $16,000. Just ask yourself, could you take a bill that goes from 4,200 to $16,000 in 1 year? No, you couldn't. That made her cry the whole night. I totally understand. So she only owns 30% share of the property. She pays rent for the rest. But the increase on the service charge means she'll be going from paying an additional $350 a month to almost $1,300. It's actually ridiculous, people. And they don't give a shit. They actually don't give a shit this girl's going through this. She's going to have to figure this out on her own. So how do you afford it? God knows. Absolutely. I don't even know. So let's get into it. Let's watch some videos about this, guys. But that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today. Let's get into it.
Pros and cons of shared ownership. Loads of people ask about shared ownership, so I'm here to tell you all about it. Basically, it's a scheme designed to help people get on the property ladder that can't afford to traditionally. You buy a certain percentage of the property, and because of this, the mortgage that you need is a lot smaller. The biggest pro, of course, is that you are getting on the property ladder, and over time you can increase your ownership all the way up to 100%. However, lots of negatives. Not only are you paying a mortgage, but you're also paying rent on the part of the property that you don't own, and usually service charge as well, because the property is usually leasehold. You have responsibility for 100% of the property, even though you don't own it all. But for me, the biggest problem...
So you don't even get the benefit of renting. Where something goes wrong, it's not your problem. You go to the landlord. You are technically the landlord, even though you're paying the landlord for rent. Make it make sense.
When you're selling, you can only sell either back to the shared ownership company that you bought it from originally, or back to somebody who is buying through the shared ownership scheme.
So if you if you sell it back to the company, obviously you're not going to be able to get the market rate. There'll be all sorts of dodginess going on there if there's only one buyer. And then if you're selling it to someone else through the scheme, you're just getting them into one of these dodgy deals.
Or you're drastically reducing the number of buyers you can sell to,
Exactly.
and you may end up stuck. Let me know your thoughts.
And just let that one sit in. You may end up stuck in that. Jasmine in the comments here, I'd like to add some cons. They dictate how many pets you can have and how many times a year you're allowed to go on holiday. You can't change. Here's the thing, guys. If you're in America, that is probably going to make sense to you if you're under a HOA right now. And it can be like this one here, down to the HOA. So some of them might have very little rules, but some of them might be a nightmare.
Hello everyone, another day, another whiteboard presentation. Today is going to be on shared ownership and how it all really works. So with shared ownership, it's like what it says in the tin. You take a share in owning a property. Specific example, we're going to use this house being valued at £400,000 and you're going to buy a share of its 50% in that. That means the housing association is going to own the other 50%. Now, generally how this works is that it means you only need to take out a mortgage on the 50% share you own, not of the whole 400,000. So it can be useful for people who aren't able to afford this 400k house, but are able to then be able to live into it. The way that works is you get a mortgage on this £200,000 share, and your deposit, let's say, will be 5%, which means your mortgage on that share will be 95%. So your mortgage value will be 190k, your deposit will be 10,000. And as a general example, over a 30-year term and 5%, that'll end up costing you £1,020 per month for your share.
Wow.
But with the housing association, they need to kind of get their slice of the cake as well.
Of course they do.
So they do this by not only getting the capital appreciation of their 50% share, but they also will charge you a monthly rent as well.
Yeah.
Now, this can range from the housing association. The housing association, however, as a general figure for something like this, you'd be looking at about a 458 total, which would bring your monthly payments to £1,478 on a shared ownership of a value 400k, with your share being about 200k's worth. Now, the thing with shared ownership is the fact that you take on all the onus of being an owner of a house, except you don't actually get the best part of owning the whole house. So if anything goes wrong, you're going to have to front all the money for it. So if your boiler breaks or the roof needs retiled, you're going to have to pay all that. The housing association is not liable to pay the 50%. There are other things, there are pros and cons to this, but I'm not going to mention them all here. However, this just gives you...
And that's it, guys. You tell me in the comments, is this a good deal? Would you sign up to this to get on the property ladder? I wouldn't.
Here are the cons of shared ownership. Mortgage availability. Not all lenders offer mortgages for shared ownership. However, the majority will. Ground rent and service charge. You have to pay 100% of the ground rent and service charge for the property, irrespective of how low your share is. Leaseholds. All properties purchased through the scheme are leasehold properties. This may not necessarily be a negative, but it's always good to know. Limits on selling. If you wanted to sell your property, you may find that your options are limited due to the restrictions for who can buy your home. This makes it difficult to sell your property quickly. Asking permission. If you wanted to make any improvements to your property or any changes structurally, you may need permission from your housing association before doing so. Staircase.
And that's it, guys. That's it. You're just going to be asking. It's not like you own the house straight away. You might own it at the end of it, but it's just going to be a long process and you have to start asking permission. You don't even get the benefits of renting from someone. I just see this as negative all around. Leave me a comment, guys. I really want to know what you say. And then you have to do something like what Andrew's doing here. Thanks for explaining. We're hoping to get a 75% shared ownership so the rent isn't too high. But then you're still going to be paying loads on the mortgage side of things. So it's going to be expensive every month regardless.
I recommend buying a shared ownership property. Well, it really depends on your strategy of how you're going to buy that share. Buying a small share and not having a plan to buy the additional shares doesn't really make sense. Okay, it might be better than renting, but you don't, you're also taking that liability on. What I would say is, have you got a plan, whether it's an income plan, your profile's gonna get better, your job's gonna get better, you're gonna have inheritance come to you, deposit money to buy that additional share. That will decide whether it's a good idea to go down the shared ownership route or not. Because sometimes it's not a good idea, sometimes it is a good idea. It's very dependent on that strategy. So think about that strategy first before you start speaking to lots of mortgage brokers and lenders about shared ownership schemes, especially the developers, because all of them will say, of course it is, of course it's a good idea. Answer that question first, and then you'll be able to make.
Never just listen to developers, guys. Never just listen to real estate agents. You have to do your own research on these things. It's probably the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life, a house, and you don't want to wake up in one of these terrible deals and it's just you've been lied to, because everyone will lie to you these days. I'm the only person who won't lie to you. Right, we'll do them all and get out of here. I just wanted to shed a bit of light on this situation. To me, it's another case of just the world is burning. The government will come up with these schemes to help people get on the property ladder. And then you look into the schemes, the people in the schemes are saying, hang on a minute, this isn't as good as they're making it out to be. And now I've woken up and my bill's gone up 250%. And now I own 16k a year in ground rent. Ugh.
I really wish I hadn't done shared ownership. Oh, why is that? I'm paying £700 a month on rent on top of my mortgage. Oh man, that sounds so shit. I had a £300 bill last month to fix the fridge. I only own 50% of the flat, and that was 100% of the bill. It just isn't fair. Fuck, I can't believe that. That's crazy. Even if I wanted to own 100% of the flat, I'm not allowed. Oh my god. And then, to top it off, when I want to sell, I'm gonna have to sell it to someone who wants a shared ownership. Really wish I hadn't.
To be honest, I'm looking in these comments and I'm hearing good things from people saying that you got them on the property ladder, they did it properly. I think that previous video, the guy saying you need a plan, that is actually the key. You want to get out of the part where you're renting and you want to like staircase up, I believe is what they call it, where you just keep buying shares, but you need a lot of money to do that. We'll do one more and get out, guys.
There are 3 reasons you should never buy through shared ownership. So shared ownership is actually a government home ownership scheme designed for people who can't afford to buy a property outright. You basically buy a share of a property, normally between 10 and 75%, and the housing association that you buy the property from owns the remaining share. You then pay mortgage payments on the share that you own and pay rent on the share that you don't. The aim is to gradually buy more and more of the home through what they call staircasing. Now, I'm not really a fan of this scheme, and here's why. Firstly, you're actually still a tenant. Now you just have a mortgage. Secondly, you can't actually rent the property out until you staircase to 100%. So that means you're limited in what you're allowed to do with the property because you don't fully own it. Additionally, every time that you do staircase, you still need to pay conveyancing fees. It's as if you're buying a property for the first time. But the most important reason why I would stay clear of shared ownership, they're really difficult to sell. Ultimately, the housing association has a lot more control over this. Let me know your thoughts on shared ownership. Like and follow for more real estate tips.
Yeah, and we'll leave it here, guys, but I've actually just been looking in the comments and it does kind of make sense. The people in London, I think they got a better deal just because rents are so expensive down there, and if you buy a high share in it, the rent would be less than the rent and the mortgage and the service charge would be less in London. I actually get that. That makes sense. So yeah, guys, just thought I'd bring your attention to this. Leave me a comment. Have you done this? Has it worked out for you? I really like hearing from the community. So I'll read those comments, get back to you, and I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Bye.